2, Provincial Parliament, Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
I see Speaker Fernandez.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, Honourable Premier, members and guests, I hereby wish to present the Western Cape Provincial Parliament's budget for the 2018-2019 financial year. Let me say right at the outset that with the assistance and support of the Deputy Speaker, the Secretary and all staff, we remain committed to improving the services we render to our members, and we are constantly looking for ways to improve and enhance the services in a very tight fiscal environment. Members must be empowered to fulfil the functions required from them by our Constitution optimally. The Western Cape Provincial Parliament has once again received a clean audit for the 2016-2017 financial year, yet again showing its commitment to good governance in executing its core functions to achieving its vision of being a dynamic, effective and efficient Parliament supporting constitutional democracy. The Auditor General has acknowledged Western Cape Provincial Parliament's achievement in recognition of an appreciation for achieving a clean audit opinion since the 2014 financial year. In 2017-2018, our Parliament will be primarily busy with two major projects, these being the Enterprise Resource Management System and the Functional Enhancement Exercise. The Secretary has informed me that we will migrate from the government's transversal system to Stage 3 with effect from Tuesday, the 3rd of April 2018. Apart from the integrated human resources, finance and supply chain management functions, the X3 system also has several additional functionalities and abilities, such as self-help and mobility. More information will be provided to members as we commence active transacting on X3. In this regard, I wish to thank the Secretary and his team that despite the numerous challenges and setbacks, we will be seeing the benefits of the ERP system soon. Members, though, must be aware, like any new system, there will be teething problems, and your patience will be greatly appreciated during the first few months. Therefore, in 2018-2019, WCPP will embed the system and stabilize the process surrounding it. The second project is the Functional Enhancement Study, which commenced during the third quarter of the 2017-2018 financial year. This is the first time that the Western Cape Provincial Parliament has re-examined its business processes, resources and organizational structure since 2006. The aim of this exercise is to streamline and optimize the effectiveness and efficiency of functional units within the budgetary framework in order to deliver better services to members. Through this exercise, we seek to ensure that as an organization, we are focused, responsive, forward-thinking and results-oriented. The Western Cape Provincial Parliament envisioned that the outcomes of this exercise will also encourage a more cohesive and supportive working environment for staff. The first phase of the project has now been completed, and we envisage to obtain the final report soon. An implementation plan will be finalized during the 2018-2019 financial year. The Western Cape is facing its worst drought in many years, and we are committed in contributing in part to the water-saving process by ensuring that the water consumption in the precincts are reduced. Although no specific budget has been allocated for the water crisis, we work very closely with the Department of Transport and Public Works in their implementation of water savings initiatives. Like all provincial departments, we have drafted our own water scarcity business continuity plan, which intends to assist members of Parliament, executive management and staff in making informed decisions during possible water supply outages. This plan will also ensure that we are prepared and are able to respond and recover from extended periods of water supply disruption, thus allowing us to continue with our critical services. In terms of procedural support, the process of the rules review is in its final stages before it will be presented to the Rules Committee for consideration. Being the last year leading up to the elections, we anticipate receiving an increase in legislation from National Parliament, and we have therefore made provision for this in our budget. Western Cape Provincial Parliament has also made provision in its budget for the intake of new members after the general election in 2019, and an allocation has been set aside for furniture, equipment, and other facilities. Considerable thought is going into preparation for new members to ensure that they will be equipped and enabled to fulfill their functions. We also count on current members of Parliament to provide input on their experiences and suggestions to improve the orientation programme to the new members of Parliament in the 6th term. In terms of public education and outreach, Western Cape Provincial Parliament has continued to promote opportunities for the public to have access and involvement in its lawmaking and oversight processes. This is done through engagement in pre-hearings, legislative education initiatives, and facilitating involvement in actual hearings. We will continue to be responsive to other public outreach initiatives coordinated by the legislative sector, including sectoral parliaments and commemorative events. We have also set aside funding sourced from the legislative sector donor funding to undertake a baseline study which will focus on public participation and related functions within the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. This baseline study will serve as a point of reference to determine whether interventions implemented have made any qualitative impact on the proceedings of the legislature. In terms of the Financial Management of Parliament and Provincial Legislative Act, the executive authority, after consultation with the Minister of Finance, is required to determine a process of submitting Parliament's budget and adjustment budget to Treasury. I am pleased to announce that after discussion, a terms of engagement document between the Minister of Finance and myself has been concluded and will go a long way in formalising the consultation process between Provincial Treasury and the Provincial Parliament. Allow me to present a high-level summary of the 2018-2019 budget. Excuse me. Total receipts increased by 6.15 million from 137,715 million in the revised estimate to 143,874 million in 2018-2019. Treasury funding increases by 6.223 million from 137,187 million, the revised estimate to 143,410,000 in 2018-2019. This equates to a 4.47% increase in total receipts from the 2017-2018 financial year. Our own receipts for 2018-2019 is at 464,000. The Western Cape Provincial Parliament will be utilising the surplus donor funds of the Legislative Sector Support Programme over the MTEF period and has allocated it in its own receipts over the MTEF an amount of 400,000 for 2018-2019, 750,000 each for 2019-20 and 2020-21 financial years. These funds will be used for sector-specific programs, and then the balance of 64,000 is mainly sourced from items such as interest accrued on the bank account, interest on debt, commission earned, sale of corporate gifts, sale of meals, and retained parking fees. If we break down the budget per program, Program 1, which is administration, will receive 65,786,000, which is a 1.49% increase from the 2017-2018 revised estimate. This program includes the improvement of conditions of service for staff, as well as the cost of employment of all senior management and capital expenditure for the vote. The program's minimal increase of 964,000 is the net effect of an increase in compensation of employees and the decrease in goods and services. The reduction of goods and services is as a result of the once-off procurement of the enterprise resource system, which is anticipated to be concluded in the 2017-18 financial year. It is also anticipated that the expenditure on capital will be reduced for the 2018-2019 financial year, as all the major hardware purchases and network refresh will be completed in the 2017-2018 financial year. There is also provision made for members' furniture in preparation for the 6th Parliament, as well as provision for the new copy machine contracts. Programme 2, which is facilities for members and political parties, increased with 6.07% from the revised estimate to 50,771,000, which makes provision for an increase in members' enabling allowances, payment of medical aid contribution for continuation members, as well as transfers to political parties in line with national parliament. Provision is also made for the payment of subscription fees to the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. Programme 3, Parliamentary Services, will receive an amount of 27,317,000, which is a 9.15% from the 2018 revised estimate. The increase relates to provision made for the improvement of conditions of service, strengthening of WCPP's oversight, responsibilities and mandate, and this budget also includes an amount of 400,000 sourced from unspent donor funds received from the Legislative Sector Support Programme for the implementation of the South African Legislative Sector Policy and Strategic Framework during the 2011-2012 financial year. The balance of 1.9 million will be allocated 750,000 and 750 for 2019-20 and 2020-21 respectively. If we look at the budget per economic classification, we will see the following. Compensation of employees will increase by 10,554,000, which represents an 18.15% increase from the 2017-2018 revised estimate. This increase relates to the provision of salary adjustments as well as the strengthening of our oversight responsibilities and mandates. Goods and services and capital assets will decrease with 16% to 27,483,000 and 27.24% to 3.392 million respectively from the revised estimate. This is primarily because the main spending relating to the implementation of the ERP system will be concluded in the 2017-2018 financial year. Transfers and subsidies will increase by 5.13%, and included is the secretarial and constituency allowances, which will receive a 5.9% respectively on the allocation that qualifies for an increase. In conclusion, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would like to thank the Minister of Community Safety, Minister Plato, and his department for the assistance given to the committees of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament when they went out on oversight visits. I would also like to thank the Secretary and his staff, the entire team, for their hard work and commitment under challenging circumstances. And it would be remiss of me, Deputy Speaker, to not thank you for your support and assistance in challenging times. I thank you.
I see the Chief Whip on his board.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the DA supports this budget. In many ways, this Parliament has been subjected to an ongoing disruptive program for a number of years. These disruptions are sometimes predictable and at other times circumstantial, and we have not anticipated some of them. As far as the FUMP is concerned, as the Speaker has already alluded to, we're in the final stage of the implementation of the financial Parliamentary Act, Legislative Act, and the ERP is in its final implementation stage. Hopefully We will stick to the deadline as has been previously delayed, but I'm sure that this time round we will get it right. Our GRAP, we've converted over to GRAP and the new accounting standard, and we have continued to get a clean audit. So that in that regard, the Secretary and his top management need to be congratulated in achieving much with very little. We've done it on a shoestring, and they need to be congratulated for that. As far as legislation is concerned, you heard what the Speaker said, is that we're budgeting for more increase in legislation. And we have anticipated so in our program. However, the ongoing chaos within the ANC and the NCOP in particular, which is our conduit for 76 legislation, has seen that we have a stalling of 76 legislation. Their cooperation with us has been haphazard. We've seen amendments upon amendments while we're processing legislation. We're in the busy processing legislation with public hearings, and they start to have amendments on that legislation on the other side. So we have to stop the public hearings and wait for the C&D bills to come through. The WCC, the late notifications, on many occasions we get invited to send special delegates the day before an event takes place. The postponement of SONA was an exercise in absolute chaos, which embarrassed not just South Africa, but ourselves in front of the country, in front of the world. We have changed programs at a drop of a hat, and at times there are no programs. We're the only one that seems to have a program, and this unfortunately appears to be almost like a bridge too far for them on the other side there in order to be able to put a program together. But we now have a new situation, Deputy Speaker, that is going to throw a serious curveball into our whole programming cycle for this year. The National Assembly and the NCOP in their programming this morning decided they're going to close, they're going to suspend proceedings on the other side from the 30th of May until the 13th of August. Now they didn't. Which planet are you on, the Honourable Chief Whip, on the other side? I suggest that you read John Steenhuisen's statement on this regard. And the question that needs to be asked, there was no negotiation on this. It was simply inserted yesterday as a rumour and confirmed today. The reason is because five of the ANC provinces are in such chaos, they need to have a number of months in order to be able to stabilise those provinces in preparation for the elections. And the question is, once again, the ANC has put its own party political interests in the interests of the country. So public scrutiny and oversight over the executive will not take place for the next number of months. And the question is, how is this possible? The waste to the taxpayer is going to be astronomical. The third thing that has been disruptive for us has been both the drought and the austerity measures. We've had austerity for a couple of years that we've had to live with, and that curtailed our program to a certain extent, but the drought also has compacted that curtailment of our activities and also our public events. But our thanks go to the Provincial Parliament staff for being flexible in their attitude. And then there's the issue relating to the staff. The Speaker's already said that there's going to be a significant increase as far as the costing is concerned, their income is concerned. But it is a matter of concern that we have lost some key personnel in the last while. Staff who have years of experience and with institutional knowledge, and that requires solid. This institution needs strong institutional knowledge, and some of the staff that we have lost, unfortunately, have been poached by the National Parliament, which pays astronomical salaries, and it is not beyond the realms of possibility that many of these staff, unfortunately, have to reconsider the place of employment simply because of the offers that are being made on the other side. But the thing is, they're being made these offers because they're high-quality professional staff. And we would like to thank all the Western Cape Provincial Parliament staff for their professionalism and ask that they continue with the good service that they deliver to us in the committees. But lastly, the aspect that I wanted to touch on is
Order.
there's a-
Order. Honourable Janchi. Allow the member to continue his speech.
One of the key roles of the Provincial Parliament is to service and support the members. But the presumption is that the members are worthy of support. The question of integrity with regard to this institution as an institution is now being questioned. And that is as a result of some of the actions of some of the members as far as this Parliament is concerned. We expect to get service from the Parliament on a professional basis, but we don't get that sent back to us by the attitude and the conduct of some of our members. We had also, as far as an institution, and I'll get back to that in a minute, we have had in the last while, we have to have a symbiotic relationship also with some of the departments, Public Works, SAPS and Community Safety in particular. And one of the things I would like to raise with the Speaker, and I know I've written to as well, or to the Secretary, and that is the repeated failure of the fire alarms, which is very recently, and is a very worrying fact as far as this building is concerned. And that needs to be addressed. But, Deputy Speaker, it is increasing the image of Western Cape Provincial Parliament being portrayed by its members that is the greatest concern. And that threat needs to be addressed. We heard today about what happened in Hermanus and Honourable Member Dugmore. But there is and I won't read the quote again, but it has become synonymous with ANC attitude in this House and elsewhere in this party, that they have repeatedly shown that they are racist. They've demonstrated that they are anti-coloured in some of their statements. They are sexist in the way the Women's League treats women in particular. They are anti-Semitic, as by the pronouncements in this House repeatedly. They are violence apologists. They're xenophobic, as we saw in Hermanus, where the first targets were the Somalian shops, ordinary people who are legally in the country, just trying to eke out a living. And what they do, they don't chase them out just, they go and steal their stock. They're anti-poor. And their relationship with the EFF is a demonstration of just how anti-poor they are.
Order. Honourable Willifield. Order. Honourable Willifield. Question.
No, Speaker, just on a point of order in terms of relevance. We're dealing with with the Speaker's vote. Now we're in Hermanus the whole time.
Order.
So we just want the relevance.
I will keep an eye on that. It's still in order. Member Wiley, you may continue.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. As far as this attitude of non-cooperation and contrary to the general aspects of rule of law was seen with regard to their attitude of the appointment of the new registrar. First of all, they complained bitterly, the ANC did, with regard to the fact that the registrar had resigned. Then when we went through the process of reappointing a new registrar, the ANC decided they weren't going to participate. Then they said, we're not having conduct committees. So when we did convene conduct committees, the very first one, they then cleared the pitch with regard to the registrar and the chairman and everything else. And the program, so on the one hand, they say to the press, we are not dealing with controversial cases in the conduct committee, but on the other hand, they stopped the working of the conduct committee. But this typical non-cooperation, this non-cooperation is typical. Member David said today that what happened in Hermanus was a legitimate process and called on all ANC structures to support it and follow ANC policies. This is consistent with what Honourable Dugmore said in his SMS, where he said that our policies have to be maintained. But the problem with the ANC is that they are so confused with regard to the Freedom Charter, they hold it superior to the Constitution of South Africa. One can understand Mr. Dugmore supporting the Honourable Davids. He defended her inexcusable actions in front of the Conduct Committee with enthusiasm. And I won't go into the detail of it, but the fact of the matter is, he was the one that said, go soft on her. Confusion. I beg your pardon? Would you?
Is there a question?
Don't lie, speak.
I didn't hear that. Honourable,
Come, just own up, man.
Honourable Davis?
I withdraw the word.
Whatever you- what
don't
is-
lie.
Yes, that is unparliamentary. Thank you. Honourable Wale?
Thank you very much. Confusion in the ANC regarding the rule of law and their party policy has been demonstrated through their ungovernability campaign, their constant in the previous administration saying that the DA government was illegitimate, their reclaim program, and again they've been said now that their policies, which went through in Parliament, must, and let me just quote to you Minister Nokohana Moshabani yesterday. She said, we can't wait for Parliament's go-ahead before expropriating land without compensation. In other words, irrespective of what Parliament decides, changing the Constitution and so on, is that they must just go ahead and invade land. We are going to do that, she says. It is in the Constitution. She just tries to cover her backside. And then she says, if you live in Brussels, it is perfectly legitimate to take your property away, or words to that effect. Now, well, you like to think it, we misquote it. But unfortunately, Speaker, Deputy Speaker, it is not just it's not just the ANC that misbehaves in this House. The absent member, who I hope that we will address shortly, the EFF representative, has said that he was taking instructions from the leader, Julius Malema. If people see land, then it is suitable for living, they should utilize it. In other words, they should take it. Because the leader of this article said lawlessness and violence as part of a province-wide campaign to grab land has been put squarely on the shoulders of the EFF after it was emboldened by the ANC agreeing on the issue of expropriation without compensation. Finally, I'd just like to say, Deputy Speaker, the fact that we live by a code of conduct, and this here is the code of conduct that we all have to abide by, and one of which is integrity. Firstly, that as far as 2.3 is concerned relating to integrity, a member shall ensure at all times that the dignity, credibility and integrity of the provincial parliament is maintained. Accountability. A member, A, is accountable to the public for his or her decisions and actions and shall submit himself or herself to whatever scrutiny is appropriate to his or her office. Deputy Speaker, I will ensure that this matter of the...
Yes, I would like to respond to some of the issues, but maybe towards the end. Again, in the financial year where we are, and the past financial years in the vote, the provincial parliament, we've seen major underspendings. Underspending as in the past financial years, while the burning issues in this vote was not addressed. And that was not for 1 year, but it's an ongoing process that we see of underspending taking place. Mafakira, voormalige sekretaris van die Wes-Kaapse parlement, het reeds in Augustus 2015 uit jong speaker daarop gewys dat die provinsiale parlement se funksies heeltemal in duie kan stort as dan nie drastiese stappe geneem word om personeelvakatures te vul nie. Sy het die kolle geplaas op die algemene gebrek aan 'n herstelplan. Personeel is oorwerk en kan nie aan die parlement se diensleweringsvereistes voldoen nie, hulle is uitgebrand en daar is 'n afname in die gehalte van hulle werk weens die oormatige werkdruk. Gebruik meer personeel siekverlof, het sy in haar verslag gesê. En dan is daar geen verbasing hoekom personeel weggaan nie. Nie dat hulle afgerokkel word nie, maar is nie meer 'n ordentlike werksomgewing om te werk nie. On the crisis, the speaker responded to say she needed an immediate 34 million rand to get her house in shape. As long as I don't have money, I can't fix it. And we know it's not correct. But still, you see an underspending on the budget year on year on year happening. The plea for Mrs. Fakira was ignored, and staff were told in writing to make do with what they have. So it was no surprise that Ms. Sifakira resigned from this institution as secretary, so duly appointed just after 1 year. But to follow her very soon was also Mrs. Rashida Beck, the deputy secretary, who resigned the provincial legislature. And then we lost two senior officials, and both of them women, out of the 3 senior officials here. And that under the watch of the executive authority, the Speaker. The vacant post of Deputy Speaker, and that's the problem, Honourable Deputy Speaker, the vacant post of Deputy Secretary, and there's 2 Deputy Secretaries, is still not filled, after it became vacant in 2015. The Chief Parliamentary Office, Mr. Nagy, was then asked to act as Deputy Secretary, but with his work as Chief Parliamentary Office and Deputy Secretary, of course, who can cope that? And of course, he resigned a few months ago as well, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, then we also have an acting public and education and outreach manager. And almost like everybody is acting in this department and section. And we can give a long list, and we've mentioned some that was identified by the previous secretary. Deputy Speaker, staff get a mere 1,014 Rand per month medical aid subsidy. And when it's exceptional cases, they reach their sick leave cap, no understanding or compassion is showed. And that we can ask many staff that's here. They must either then take their leave. They're not called in and say, well, what's the issue? No, sorry, that you've reached your cap, and no compassion showed at all. Speaker, you failed the staff of the legislator. Speaker, Provincial and Deputy Speaker, Provincial legislator must facilitate public involvement, and that's important to refer to that. In the legislative and other processes of the legislature and its committees, it must increase and broaden participation and must create platforms for discussion and consensus building on challenges facing the province. Hier bestaan geen, en dit kan ons duidelik sê, geen aktiewe publieke deelnameproses in die wetgewer nie. Die naaste wat daaraan gekom word is die advertering van openbare verhore in koerante. Hier is nie 'n openbare deelname eenheid nie, en word daar niks gedoen om die gemeenskap betrokke te kry by onder meer die deelname aan voorgestelde wetgewing nie. Die wat wel daar is, word baie keer deur politieke partye gemobiliseer, en ons sê baie dankie, miskien die geld aan politieke partye oorgedra word, siende dat die werk nie hier gedoen kan word nie. Dit is ook dan die rede, adjunct Speaker, dat by baie openbare verhore met leë stoele gepraat word, en dit is 'n feit en dit is die werklikheid van dit. Sub-program Public Education and Outreach that you will claim, Speaker, is responsible for public participation, have no public participation performance indicator, although you try to refer to that. Their performance indicators, and you can just go and look and check in the APP on that again, for 2018-2019 are the number of educational initiatives to tell them about lawmaking and things like that, but it's not helping public participation, and the number of new educational items so developed. Furthermore, although the Constitution in Section 115 gives the public the right to petition the legislator, petitions are clearly not working for the people of the Western Cape, Deputy Speaker. You make the process so cumbersome and impossible, thereby defeating the whole purpose and intention of the Constitution, Section 115. Petitions must be and are requested for the Provincial Parliament to intervene on behalf of citizens or group of citizens. Your performance indicator said 100% of petitions processed, but the question is, what is the number of petitions that you really process? And if we look at your baseline here, it's 2 non-compliant submissions in terms of petitions. Petitions don't just get through to the Petitions Committee. It gets blocked all the way. That's why there's no petitions. And then, of course, you can easily claim there's 100% compliance. But this is nothing new. We know, in fact, that the DA don't want public participation and will never resource and put a working public participation process in place, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the Sunday Times reported on and quoted from the Auditor General of South Africa's management report and management response thereto for the vote Provincial Parliament, This referred to irregular expenditure in the office of the Speaker. I then wrote to the Secretary of Parliament for a copy, as a member, for a copy of the report. It's a not confidential report. He informed me that he's not going to make the report available to me. I then had to go further and request, in terms of the promotion of access of information, again to get the report, and again the report was turned down by the same person, the Secretary, again. And then he said, but if you're grieved, you can internally appeal or you can go to court. I thought, well, let's first of all use all the resources available and go for an internal appeal. And that's exactly what happened. The Secretary then turned it down and said, sorry, there's no room for an internal appeal. I have a letter stating, go for an internal appeal. I have a letter stating, you can't internally appeal. But the whole problem is that, Honourable Deputy Speaker, and the question is, what are they hiding, not giving this report? If you go on the website today of this Western Cape Provincial Parliament, you will get a form, say, Annexure C. Clear logo of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament stating notice of internal appeal and how you must go about to do an internal appeal. But of course, coming from the opposition, coming from somebody that's not close to a government party, it was clearly not turned down, it was rejected, although there's a clear process. Furthermore, we must maybe also show the process that's in place by National Assembly. There's a National Assembly document and clearly make provision for an internal appeal that's in terms of the Act. And while we're busy with the legislation, Honourable Deputy Speaker, I must refer to Section 14 of the Promotion of Access to Information Act, because this is very important. This is something that was introduced in the new democratic South Africa, where people must get access to what government is doing and not doing. And in terms of that, after 2000, each institution, including this institution, must have a manual. Must have a manual in terms of Section 14. And that manual states that the Information Officer Secretary must compile a manual, and that's the manual for the normal public out there, which purpose is to inform members of the public about the function of the Provincial Parliament, number one. Services available, information that can be obtained, and a description of provisions made to realize and to facilitate public involvement. That must be in the manual, Honourable Deputy Speaker, in the legislative and other process. But if you look at this organisation, and that's why they fall, from one letter you're allowed and another letter you're not allowed, there's no manual available in this Western Cape Provincial Parliament in South Africa. And that's a clear offence in terms of Section 90 of the mentioned Act. And I think that's very, very important. In the budget, Speaker, the Speaker stated that under Programme 1 and Programme 3 that there's no policy developments, and under Programme 2, no significant policy developments. But Speaker, we know, and you actually referred to that today, that the remuneration policy, and that's really a major problem and, of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, has been amended last in 2006. You mentioned it yourself. While the staff structures and the remuneration packages were changed without the relevant policy being updated. I would presume that in the budget, the first big heading would be change of policy, but it's not there. It's either none of or not significant. It is very clear, Speaker, that you as the executive authority and the Secretary as accounting officer did not meet and don't plan to meet your responsibilities detailed in FAMPLA. And then you say you comply with FAMPLA. You don't, since you failed to ensure the regular review and update of policies. You therefore failed to establish and communicate relevant policies and procedures to enable support, understanding, and execution of internal control objectives, processes, and responsibilities. Speaker or Deputy Speaker, I want to say, and earlier on and today as well, there was reference to that. The Speaker indicated that the matter of Member Sharon Davids was handed to the South African Police Service, and that a case has been registered at the Cape Town Central Police Station. You further, Speaker, said, and I quote, "We have provided the information," I believe, to the police. So I assume you provided the information So, Speaker, did you lay the charge? Or if it was not yourself, who actually laid the charge with the South African Police Service? The question then arises, Speaker, while you laid a charge with the South African Police Service, and this is the major problem, why did you also hand the file of a member of Parliament, not of the executive? A member of Parliament, you handed that file over to the Department of Community Safety, a government department. And that is a major transgression. What mandate do you have? And that they have to hand over a file to community safety to investigate the member by a Mr. J.C. Gerber of the department. Is this the norm, Speaker, to hand over members' files? And I saw the file. It's a thick file. It's a whole file that you handed over to him. And maybe even that of staff to the Department of Community Safety. Mr. Gerber came to the 4th floor of the ANC with the file of member Davids and interrogated and intimidated, can you believe it, ANC staff. And that's true, because I was there. Speaker, why did you give member Davids' file to Mr. Gerber? I want to ask that. What parallel clandestine structure is this, and why did you decide to engage in such illegal activities? This is just completely wrong and unacceptable, creating distrust in what you do, and can members and staff not believe that information will be in future in safe hands? Clearly, Speaker, Deputy Speaker, a transgression of the powers and privileges and immunities of Parliaments and Provincial Legislators Act, and also the Code of Conduct. And that's very important. But let me briefly also refer to some of the issues. Honourable Wiley referred to SONA. SONA was attended by your leadership here. SONA was attended by your leadership in the DA. The leadership of the DA and the leadership here stood up, and they were very happy on what happened there. There was no mess around SONA. There was an extension about SONA. Everybody accepted this in the country except you. You were very unhappy when, of course, you were forced to extend SOPA, because we've put our foot down. We said we will not. The ANC did. The ANC did. The leader of the opposition said to the Premier, that must only come after State of the Nation address, and it happened like that. Order. And it happened like that. Honourable Deputy Speaker, now we hear the Honourable Wiley complaining about May to August. I'm sure there's been a clear decision taken. I'm also sure he will be the first one coming forward and say, let's look at our own program. Because if people go out, and I don't know, you didn't give a reason, but there must be a very good reason for do it, and let's say one of the reasons could be an early election, you would be the first person to say, let's also release our people, let's also go out there to fight the election. You will be the first one. Otherwise, you can stay behind and we will do the work that we're supposed to do. But Honourable Deputy Speaker, it's you will be the first one to say that. Honourable Deputy Speaker, it's so interesting to show. It's so interesting to say, and to point a finger to Honourable Cameron Duckbourne, that represented Honourable Sharon Davids. What happened in that meeting? Who's got the majority in the Conduct Committee meeting? The DA. And what happened in that meeting? The DA voted with the ANC. That's why we said there's only a warning. It was not the ANC. We don't have a majority in the Conduct Committee. So don't come with that nonsense, please, and say, oh, we watered it down. There's nothing that we can water down. We don't have a majority, and you all know that there's no clear majority in that. And I would be very happy, Honourable Deputy Speaker, if we can speed up the work of the Conduct Committee. That's great. Honourable Wiley, you are one of the people that must come before the Conduct Committee, and I hope that happens soon. Honourable Madikizela, you are one of the people that must come in front of the Conduct Committee. Honourable Mbomo, you're one of the people that must come in front of the Conduct Committee. Honourable Zella, you're one of the people that must come in front of the Conduct Committee. So let's speed it up. Let's speed it up. But you know, Deputy Speaker, there was an...
Order.
There was an audit, there was a conduct committee on the 18th of August 2017. And the next one happened now on the 16th of March. Do you think the ANC stalled that? No, no. You will recall how many times in the Programming Authority I raised the issue that the Conduct Committee must continue with its work. But what we can't accept, you manipulating the processes there. You can't come with a chairperson imposed on a committee. Vote for a chairperson, then we accept it. There's a majority vote, but you did not want to follow process. And that's the problem. And that's the problem with the DA right through. You didn't follow process with the appointment of the secretary. You didn't follow process with the appointment of the registrar.
Order.
You didn't follow process with anybody. You just want to appoint as a DA as you wish.
Order.
And exactly what you do.
Order, order. Order. I want, Minister, Honourable Kileni, Honourable Davis, give the member a chance. His time is running out.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Let me quickly go to the ERP that was mentioned here today with a price tag close to 20 million. And we all know it was first supposed to go live on the 1st of April 2017, then extended to October 2017, then extended to the 1st of January 2018. Today we hear, well, that's good news if it's going to really come live on the 3rd of April. But what we heard as well, and very subtle, but we heard that it's not the full ERP that's going to come operational, and that's the major problem. The big part of the ERP that must be operational, and I want to hear that, is that the part of the human resource, and I heard clearly no, it was not that one become operational. Have you sorted out the issues of payment of staff, payment of members? And that's the issues that we would like to hear in terms of the ERP. So don't tell us the ERP is coming live and then there's a small bit of ERP coming live, maybe not even on that specific date. I want to continue, Honourable Deputy Speaker, and relate to another major issue here, and maybe just very briefly to that, and that is the promulgation of proclamations and regulations. It's happening in all of the departments, it's happening by all of the MECs, but there's actually no oversight over that. Legislation are very clear that there must be a list of the proclamation of a regulation stating in each case the number, the date, the title, the gazette in which it was published. And that must be submitted to the provincial legislator within 14 days. Have you ever seen that happening? And it's important because that standing committee must have oversight. Even if they can't change the regulation, even if they can't change the proclamation, it's really to get a proper understanding what's in it, to really get an understanding from the MEC what's happening here and what was the intention around that. It's not happening, and therefore I say we must adhere to that legislation. I hope that will be very high on the agenda of the Honourable Speaker to force compliance and enforce that in terms of the legislation. I want to conclude, Honourable Deputy Speaker, to thank the staff. They're working extremely hard, we all know. Die verslae wat ons kry is goeie gehalte. Daar moet baie keer aan geskaap word, maar dit is goeie werk wat gedoen word daarso. Ons spreek ons dank aan elkeen van hulle uit en sê baie dankie. Doen so voort. Ons waardeer dit opreg. Baie dankie.
The Honourable Christians.
Deputy Speaker, I want to, as the ACTP, we want to thank the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker, Secretary and all the staff for work well done. The ACTP supports this budget. Deputy Speaker, just two things in my 2 minutes. Is there is a major concern with the vacancies, and we want the Speaker to give us some perspectives on the vacancies that are not filled. But Speaker, I was part of the processes appointing the registrar, and it was if we did not insist on going ahead of with the process, we would have not filled the position, because Member Ace wanted this to be re-advertised and stalled for time. So he had opportunity when it came to the appointment of the registrar. We as political parties were part of that process, and it was a transparent process, and we were all happy with the candidate appointed. Deputy Speaker, I also just want to mention, this is not the first time that Member Ace reads that article about staff burnouts. I want to know from the Speaker, did she address this? Because Member Ace is very good in grandstanding and coming here, but there's a lot of forums where we discuss and debate these things, and then he keeps quiet. Sometimes he keeps quiet in the program authority, and he comes to the House and he grandstands. So, Deputy Speaker, I want to urge the member, when he have contributions, to make it in the relevant forums so that we can contribute to the smooth running of this House. I thank you.
Order the Speaker to reply. Can I have silence, please? Order. Order. Speaker, you have the floor.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, I would like to thank all the members for their contribution to the debate and the passion that they have displayed to support and improve services rendered by the administration. As I said in my opening address, we remain committed to supporting the members in the fulfilment of their constitutional functions, and I will continue to explore ways and means to improve the services that we render. I must, though, through you, Deputy Speaker, address the Honourable Ace, and I'm not going to respond to every single matter that is raised, but I would want to caution him that there is a fine line between oversight and interference. We understand the need for effective oversight, but when you get involved in the administration and you basically want to micromanage the administration in effecting its mandate, then it becomes an issue. So I will peruse the contributions of the members who participated in the debate, and I will provide comprehensive responses in writing to the various matters that have been raised during the debate where appropriate.
Order, 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 order. Honourable Gaka, I will not allow that. Honourable Gaka, you're not allowed to make a reflection on this chair without, and the Speaker is still the chair of the House, without a substantive motion, so I want you to please withdraw that. I hear you.
The Speaker is here as executive authority, not a Speaker. If the Speaker was not here today, you would not have been allowed to sit there as the Deputy. You're not the executive authority. She's here as executive authority.
You're touching now on a point which I wanted to raise at the end, but while you're raising it, let me just give some of my concerns. We put the Speaker, not the person of the Speaker, but the office of Speaker, in an untenable situation by allowing a debate on the floor of the House as oversight over the legislature. You all know we come from the Westminster system, where the Speaker is the neutral, impartial officer in the House. In the Westminster system, where we come from, the Speaker, the moment the Speaker gets elected to the office, the Speaker resigns, and the Speaker serves as an impartial, neutral Speaker. We unfortunately don't have that situation. We can't resign when you serve the office, because then you lose your seat in the House. So it's a very untenable situation for the Speaker to sit there and to have to counter arguments from the chair, and I'm not criticizing ourselves. I want to make the point that perhaps this is something that a future Parliament can look at, to find a different formula for overseeing the activities of Parliament. Because the one moment the Speaker is required to sit in the chair and be totally neutral and impartial, that's the main function of the Speaker. That's the non-negotiable part of the office, to be totally neutral. But on the other hand, you have a situation where the Speaker has to become part of the political fray and fight from the chair, from the seat of which he sits as a member of the House then. I grant the point that the Speaker is now sitting there not as a presiding officer, but as part of the executive, so I will not ask the member to withdraw that one. We can proceed, Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I think what I would, though, like to comment on is the fact that Chief Wabwali has talked to a decreasing level of cooperation. And I would want to request that the Chief Whip display good intent in terms of cooperating with the processes. He does seem to want to steamroll, and if he doesn't get his way, it almost becomes bullying. And that is not the spirit within which we need to engage. So I will invite you for a cup of tea, and we will sit down and talk about issues, because I do believe that we need to find a way forward that works for all 41 other members of this institution. I don't only serve 26, 25 DA members. The Deputy and I are here to serve all 40 other members. So I would want to request your cooperation going forward. And then finally, Deputy Speaker, it would be remiss of me not to thank Honourable Magaka. Focus on that book that you're reading all day.
Order.
You've not been paying attention. You've been reading a book all day.
Order.
It just shows how involved, it just shows how engaged you are in the process. Lees jou boekie, Papa.
Honourable Member.
Deputy Speaker, I would like to thank all the staff and especially all the members for their cooperation. And I would want to wish everyone who's celebrating Easter a blessed Easter, and for those who are driving, to travel safely. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That concludes the debate on this vote. We will now not suspend business but carry on with the next process. I will ask the Secretary to read the sixth order.
Consideration of votes and schedules, Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
Before I put the individual votes, I will give an opportunity for those parties who want to take the opportunity to make a declaration of vote. The ANC.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The ANC would like to make a declaration on vote 1, covering vote 1 to 14, and also state here, maybe to save some time, vote 1 to 14, that the ANC will not agree to the vote and the budget.
So you're dissenting on all 14 votes?
Absolutely.
Thank you. That makes it easier for us. I will then put the individual, not the individual, I will put the votes in total order. I'm putting votes 1 to 14 with the ANC dissenting. All other parties in agreement? Yes. It's agreed to. I will then move on to the schedule. I put the schedule. Any objections to the schedule? There's an objection to the schedule. ANC vote will be dissenting, will be recorded. I put clauses 1 to 10. Any objections? ANC dissenting. I put the short title. Any objections? There is an objection. Will be recorded. The Secretary will read the seventh order.
Finalisation of the Western Cape Appropriation.
Order. Secretary, just 1 second.
Speaker, we did indicate that we would like to make a declaration under vote 1, covering vote 1 to 14.
I misunderstood you. You can do it now.
Thank you. Honourable Leader of Opposition will do that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Order, Member Fritz, I think it was you.
Gender and spatial disparities born of a very long period of colonial apartheid, white minority domination, constitute the material base which reinforces the notion that indeed we are not one nation but two nations. The DA is using this budget and any power at its disposal to reverse the gains our people enjoy since the democratic breakthrough in order to maintain white privileges and wealth accumulated through apartheid regime. Hence, our beloved Premier Lenzil continue to praise colonialism without shame. Many of the projects allocated money are all ring-fenced and conditional grants can only be spent as intended. If it is not executed to the standard and policies the ANC-led central government, the money is forfeited. It has happened precisely like that with millions of rand recently. The ANC in the Western Cape legislature thanks the national government under the capable and steering leadership of our beloved President and Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa. We do differ with the Democratic Provincial Government, with the Democratic Alliance Provincial Government, on how it handles discretionary expenditure and is still stuck under colonialism. It is especially evident in how it favors big business and rich developers. The DA showed its hand in the Tafelberg school site sale of land intended for integrated communities and building social cohesion. The land was sold to haves, and the have-nots are again overlooked. In many projects, it seems social housing and poor people are used as a front to allow developers to make a killing with so-called open market housing. The concerns the ANC has raised with the budget will have ruling class crumble on us. The proletariat have nothing to lose but their chains. They have a well to win. The ANC therefore opposes the entire budget.
Thank you. We will then ask the Secretary again to read the seventh order.
Finalisation of the Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
Will the Minister move that? Minister of Finance.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, on the 6th of March, we came to this House to table the Western Cape Government's main appropriation 2018-19. Deputy Speaker, I highlighted that this budget recognizes that economic growth and development is critical to improve living standards and socio-economic conditions, and therefore the pursuit thereof remains a top priority of this government. Deputy Speaker, this budget for the people was tabled at the Parliamentary Budget Committee for approval, and the various budget votes were also extensively discussed in the relevant standing committees. In this particular regard, I want to thank the chairperson of the Budget Committee, Mr. Dennis Joseph, as well as all the chairpersons of the various standing committees and the various members of those standing committees. I wish to thank the honourable members for participating in these discussions and the various budget votes. Deputy Speaker, notwithstanding our economic realities, every member of the Western Cape Cabinet continues to demonstrate an admirable commitment to the delivery of the best quality services to the people of the Western Cape. I therefore extend a special word of gratitude to the Premier of the Western Cape, Yalanzela, and my Cabinet colleagues for their support and appreciation of the tough fiscal environment in which we find ourselves. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the level of commitment and proficiency in our officials and the senior management of this government was also acknowledged last night by the Chartered Institute of Government Finance and Audit Risk Officers, who last night presented the Western Cape with the following Clean Administration Awards. The best performing provincial treasury for 2015-16 financial year in terms of the municipal audit outcomes, Western Cape Provincial Treasury. But in addition to that, Honourable Deputy Speaker, the Chartered Institute also gave an award to my colleague, the best performing provincial local government, Minister Bredell, for the 2015-16 financial year in terms of the municipal audit outcomes, Western Cape Department of Local Government. Honourable Deputy Speaker, we also have a functional Premier Coordinating Forum, and this was also acknowledged last night by the Chartered Institute of Government Finance and Audit Risk Officers by awarding to the Department of the Premier Yalanzela for focused intervention and support by the provincial leadership through her Premier Coordinating Forum in terms of clean audit, municipal governance review and outlook. Honourable Deputy Speaker, to conclude, I want to put on record our deep thanks and appreciation for all the Western Cape Government heads of departments, accounting officers. I want to thank all the Western Cape Government HODs as accounting officers, and also, since you are part of the legislative arm of government, also like to register my Secretary of Parliament as the accounting officer. I'd also like to thank him for his work and his staff in this particular regard. Also, I would like to thank and appreciate all the input from the various accounting officers of the 11 public entities, as well as the chairpersons of the various public entities here in the Western Cape. I would also like to pay a special thanks to my head official, Mr. Zakaria Hussein, and the particular staff of the Provincial Budget Office for the attention in the schedules and putting the budget together. Lastly, I would very much like also to thank the various executing authorities, because I have seen so much stress during the various budget votes, cabinet meetings, special MTech engagements. Some of them got old during this period of time. But I want to record our deep appreciation for their understanding, their commitment for the difficult period in which we have put this budget, for example, together. Speaker, I now move that the Western Cape Appropriation Bill 2018-19 be finalised and be submitted to the Premier to be ascended to. I thank you.
Are there any objections to the bill being finalised? The ANC is objecting, so the ANC's dissension will be recorded. The Secretary will read the bill.
Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
The bill will be sent to the Premier for assent. Before we adjourn, I wish to rule on certain outstanding issues relating to the debate on the 23rd of March. Firstly, the Honourable Member Magaka made the following statement, and I quote from the unrevised Hansard, quote, "But guess what? Instead the Premier of this province, including her own MECs or ministers, are directly involved in the direct corruption in this provincial government," unquote. When the chair at the time asked the member to withdraw that clearly unparliamentary statement, the member responded and tried to justify his statement that he had referred to, quote, "alleged," unquote, corruption. Hansard proves otherwise, and the word alleged was never part of the statement in question. To accuse another member of the House of being corrupt is out and out unparliamentary, and the member must withdraw that statement unconditionally. I give you the opportunity to withdraw. Thank you. Secondly, order.
Deputy, unfortunately, Hansard cannot capture a nod of the head.
Honourable Magaka, for the purpose of the record, just confirm that you have withdrawn.
I withdrawn.
Thank you. Order. Premier.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, I'm afraid that does not cut it, because the Honourable Magaka knew exactly what he said and denied it immediately afterwards. So I think that it is a clear-cut case of deliberately misleading the House, and I don't think it can end just simply on a withdrawal.
Yes, Premier, it's a difficult one for the Chair to rule on that one now. I have given him the opportunity to withdraw that, and he did that. If there is a view that there must be further consequences, then certainly that can be explored in a different way. Can we move to the second one? Order, please. The Honourable Member Lecker raised a point of order, alleging that the Minister of Human Settlements had interjected, quote, "shut up," unquote, and in so doing was pointing at her. To say shut up to another member would always be unparliamentary. I have referred to Hansard, but Hansard was not able to record that alleged remark. However, in his response at the time, the Honourable Minister had conceded that he had indeed said that, but he contended that it was not directed at, quote, "any specific person," unquote, in the House. I find that very unlikely. The words, quote, "shut up," unquote, by their very nature are used in instantaneous reaction to what someone else had just said, and would not, as the Minister contended, be a general remark not aimed at anyone specific, and certainly not aimed at anyone outside of this House. I therefore rule that the honourable member must withdraw that remark. Minister Marikisela?
Voorsitter, ek trek terug.
Baie dankie. Order. Thirdly, the Honourable Magaka. Order. The Honourable Magaka, in reference to the Honourable Premier, made the following statement, and I again quote from the unrevised Hansard. Quote, "It seems as if the political head of this department just sits her time out for her purposes to amass more pension money and perks before she will go home to play with her granddaughter," unquote. This is a statement in bad taste. It is degrading. It reflects on the integrity of a member of this House. It is clearly sexist and not parliamentary. The member must withdraw that without reservation. Honourable Magaka?
I withdraw.
Thank you. Lastly, I wish to comment that there were instances during debates over the last few days where utterances and speeches unnecessarily focused on race issues, often in a negative and divisive way, polarizing our people, and in so doing also raising the racial temperature and not contributing anything to the good order in the House. Such utterances, in some instances, such utterances could have been racist, or at least bordered on being racist. I will study Hansard carefully and, if necessary, will rule in specific instances. I do, however, wish to urge members to weigh their words carefully and not to unnecessarily go down that way. That brings us to the end of business for the day. The House is adjourned.